What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video. Today, we're going to talk about the pelvic floor. We're going to do kind of a quick overview. It's something I'm going to dive more into in the webinars that we'll be holding at newbiologyclinic.com. So if you are interested in this conversation, we can dive more into that over there. So just be sure to check that out if you can and if you're interested. So with that, one of the things that gets brought up a lot that I see a lot of that spawned this conversation is talking about hernias. A lot of people are getting them. People are getting them even younger than ever before. There's all these different reasons why people are creating injuries and compressions in that abdominal wall, specifically near that pelvic floor, and where the hernias tend to happen. So, what is going on at the fundamental level? When you look at that, the body is creating all these pressures, right? When you're moving something, you're lifting something, you're twisting, whatever it may be, there's a pressure that is now happening on the body. Your body's handling that pressure and then trying to distribute that weight, moving it so you're not having to be in that pressure for too long. So it's like if you lift something heavy, your body creates an internal pressure to support it. You then have to move it around. If you're picking up a chair or a table or you're a box or a kid or whatever, that pressure obviously can only last for so long until your body gets too tired, and then you have to release that pressure. And then hopefully, if you don't feel it, you then have to let that weight or resistance go. What tends to happen is at the fundamental level, if that pelvis that sits like this from a bird's eye view, and if that starts to tilt under, which we talk a lot about being in a anterior pelvic tilt, or no, posterior pelvic tilt, where you're starting to then create a compression within that tailbone rolling under, where we start getting what we call front chain. What starts to happen is all those muscles in your pelvic floor will start to tighten up. So they become almost like interlocked. In the natural design of the pelvic floor, which I don't have a picture here, is it needs to have movement. It needs to be able to do this, it needs to be able to do this, and it needs to be able to shift around. But when we're in that interior pelvic or the posterior pelvic tilt, where we're starting to get, again, compression and that locking in that pelvic floor, what starts to then happen is that the rolling of the body starts to create this constant internal pressure of the abdomen. So it becomes a situation where whether you're moving or picking something up or not, there's just constant stress in pelvic floor in the lower abdominal area. And it's not in the mindset where you think, oh, my abs are going to get strong per se. It's just this constant clenching. And when you're in that constant clenching and the hips are rolled under, now lifting something heavy or doing something, there's so much pressure there that any sort of external pressure or extra pressure that your body isn't ready for can start to then seep or leak into an area like where you might get an inguinal hernia, where it's right in that joint, right where you start to meet into your private area. So in a nutshell, when we work with people or I work with people, we have to understand that we have to learn how to release that pelvic floor. By releasing that pelvic floor, you're also going to be releasing your hip flexor, learning how to let that tension go as well, because that has to do with your lumbar spine and where that hip flexors will sit. When you're clenched underneath and you're rolled under, you're putting pressure on the spine, you're putting pressure on the pelvic floor, you're putting pressure in a lot of this, the diaphragm. So everything is like this all the time. So the more we release that pelvic floor, we release the hip flexor, we release all that tension in our body by getting ourselves out of that front chain dominant position where we're clenched. What we can do is we can allow the fascia, because it is still fascia, to lengthen. So the muscles are moving more like this rather than staying like this. Because once they're like this and we need it to do something else and it doesn't have the space or the ability to do it because this is what it knows, this is when you'll see, again, a rip or tear or something where now it's going, oh no, something's wrong. And it's not because it's necessarily weak in the sense of it's not worked out. A lot of times it's overworked. And we see this a lot with people is that you actually get an overworked muscle that just can't sustain that type of tension, so it rips. So this is just something for us to consider in the sense of looking at if we have any issues in our hip flexors, we have any issues in the hips themselves, we have any issues in the pelvic floor, any issues in, again, hernia related or any compressions like that. We have to start looking at it. It's a lot of times isn't necessarily that it's weak because it isn't being worked. A lot of times it's an overexhausted muscle that or fascial system that's just going, we can't let this go, or we don't know how to train outside of that. So pelvic floor, again, we need to be able to have an ability to let this go, relax, come in, relax. So a lot of the movements that we do, we try to train that. It's not just you train this and everything's fine. It's also coupling with we have to get your mind out of old programming, old habits, old conditionings, old compensations in order to then introduce these new things. So it does take time. It does take relearning. You're kind of, looking at the body in a whole new light. So for many of you who say, just tell me what moves I have to do so I can be better, that's part of it, but it is a bigger journey that we have to look at. It's about slowing things down. This is why I talk so much about it is you can't make these changes if we're rushing, rushing, rushing. It's being gentle with the body, slowing it down, focusing on the breathing under these stresses and these changes, being patient with yourself. Those can help let those tensions go or that compensation. So anyway, I hope this helps. I hope to see you all soon. You can find me at newbiologyclinic.com. And on that, have a great day, everybody. Hello?
Hey.
What's up?